I know that I'm seeing some people that are already signing in. Is Peter Green and Troy with us, Don?
Everybody's here. All the co-hosts are here.
Hey guys.
I'm already nervous about this stuff.
So just very quickly, and those that have already joined the meeting kind of as guests outside of the speaker, I'm going to be handling and managing all the photos. And I've done my best to edit them. So I apologize if you don't see a picture you sent me or you see some that you didn't send me. I took the liberty because I can to put the photos in there. And I think in an effort, if Don hasn't said this already, and I apologize, Don, to keep things moving, a silent reminder is if a photo changes and one of you are talking, that's a silent reminder that we're monitoring the clock. So it's pretty much, you know, and
you're gonna have a lot of lost sheep.
Yeah, well, Don is going to probably have to monitor me, so he's probably the one person that can take the hook and get rid of me if I end up talking quite a bit. So I think that's the way to do it.
How could that possibly happen?
No, I know. Yeah, loose lips, Larry, Lucy.
I got a few announcement type things to say in a couple minutes. It's still not 11 o'clock here on my computer, so we're going to stare at each other's postage stamps for a while.
That's awesome.
This is a microphone check.
The microphone is working well.
Hello?
All right.
I love your jacket. He's got a pink jacket on. You rock and roll, Peter.
I have.
Oh, look.
I have my co-host too.
Nice.
Yeah.
Kelly Moore's.
Awesome. So you know what? If I don't get an opportunity to say this throughout,
there's Kelly.
I had the opportunity to talk with Skippy. And I also had the opportunity yesterday to talk to Cliff Oster, you know, from Antrim. So I just, I reached out to Vicki Millard and sent her an invitation. I didn't hear back, so that doesn't mean that she won't join us, but I did reach out, and I did my best to try to reach out to some alumni. So I never did get the final count from Don to say how many were going to join us, but I'm sure we gave out well over 100.
121.
Nice. Wow. Okay, so, and that's awesome. And I also think that we took on at least 3 new members and renewed 3 memberships. So I really feel like GlassZoom is helping widen our membership, and that's really an accomplishment. If that alone is what's happening, you know, I can't be prouder about it. Don, I'm going to turn this over to you when you feel like you're ready to join in.
I think we are. I think we have 28 participants so far, so they'll be rolling in.
Where'd you turn it?
I hope we have more.
I'm going to turn it all the way there.
120. Good morning from Southwestern Ohio, USA. We're going to be spanning a lot of time zones today. We've in the past meetings, we've had people from every hemisphere, it seems like. Please take a minute to edit your participant label. Go to the bottom of your screen and check the participants from the menu bar. And then beside your name, click more and rename yourself to reflect who you are and where y'all from.
Oh, where you from?
And while you do that, welcome to the AGG GlassZoom number 4, called the Antrim effect. We do these, the conception of these GlassZooms, the reason we do these is to realize a community with our members. And we sent out 121 invites. And so clearly there's a demand for community among Glass people. And many of you are AGG members, and quite a few of them are Antrim School alumni. And our goal here is as much about bringing us together in a conversation as it is about delivering content. We've got 4 co-hosts today: Peter McGrain, Troy Moody, Nikki Vogt, John Erickson, and Kathy Jordan. Each of them have a history, not that kind of history. They have a history, so to speak, a link to the AGG, to Glass Education, and to the Antrim School. So we're going to start by the meeting by going through some images with Kathy leading the slide projector, and there will be commentary from our co-hosts. You can't shut them up, basically, so they may be commenting along the way. But until we get some informal discussion, the rest of you, I hope, will stay muted. I still don't know if I've successfully done that, but we're going to try to keep it muted until probably the first hour is up, and then we can open it up. And if you want to say something, please utilize the chat off to the right. Ask questions in the chat, answer questions, meet people, have a good time. We've had some pretty lively discussions over there. The chat will be recorded, and I do review them afterwards. So if we have questions that don't get answered, don't give up hope after the meeting. Someone still may answer your question. I have followed up on some of those before. So right now I'm gonna paste a link to our AGG donation page. Can't get away from this. We'd be delighted if you help support our efforts here by giving us a donation, but I'll just paste that into the chat before I forget.
And while you're doing that, Don, I'm going to, I believe you've allowed me to share my screen.
Yes.
Okay, so I will try to move towards my version of a photo show. So
Yep.
Here we are.
We'd also like you to fill out a very brief poll if you haven't done it already and you don't mind. Here's the link to that. I'm pasting it in the chat.
What's happened?
Chat. Where's my chat? Come on. All right, there's a link to the poll. And I'm going to turn it over to Kathy Jordan, our AGG president, Antrim School alumni times 10 or 12 or something like that, and our leader through the slides and dialogues. So Kathy, I believe you're open to talk and open to show.
Yeah, and I hopefully the image that's up on your screen is adequate.
Yeah, I can see it pretty well.
Yeah, so
Looks good here.
good. And also if the speakers are unmuted, so I know that I'm probably going to have to watch Daniel White. He's off to the side screen, but he's with Nikki, and the two of them are a dangerous pair. And Nikki, to get this over with, there's my chest. She had to comment the last time. We're all good. Get it out of your system. So I'm sharing right now with all of you a T-shirt that many of us probably have. Dick created the Antrim Decade T-shirt, and that's the whole purpose of what's happening here today.
Who is Dick?
Yeah, right. Richard Millard. And it's the 10-year anniversary of his passing. He died in 2011. So at 2021, I just think the timing of coming back together and then celebrating 10 years of workshops that Dick created at the Antrim School really changed the lives of a lot of people and affected their journey in glass and more specifically with glass painting. He created an environment where we were able to socialize and network, learn, and just really fall in love with glass and see the industry and the community through his eyes. He was not shy to tell you how he felt or who he admired or who he didn't admire. But the one thing, and it was interesting, I spoke with Don this morning, you never left that workshop feeling like you had to do work or produce work the way Dick did. He gave everybody wings to create their own and find their own space in the glass painting. You know, he was very much about learning and understanding the medium and practicing and technique and materials and tools, you know, and he fostered and worked with all of us individually to find our voice. but it wasn't as though he birthed, hundreds of mini Dick Millard. All of us were really stayed true to, our own vision and voice and what we needed to learn. I want to share a photograph of the speakers for those that are coming in. Let's see. Myself, of course. I very much am a part of the American Glass Guild. I decided with the pandemic, being the pandemic president for 2 years, I thought, okay, I'll do it one more year. And unfortunately, the pandemic is still kind of floating around. We'll be in Corning, New York in July of 2022. And hopefully that's the coming out party for everyone that we've missed so much. So there'll be more about Corning on our website. We also have Peter McGrain. I took this picture of Peter.
Nice fez.
I know. And I just, and he wore that the entire class, for that day. But Peter,
Nice.
I met Peter in Antrim. He had, and still, feels very fondly about Dick and his relationship. And he came up and Dick was so excited to have him come when he came and then to continue to teach himself and really impact, the glass world and education, myself included. I took and would continue if the pandemic wasn't around to learn from him. He's a master. And just the imagination goes beyond human comprehension. Also joining is a woman that I love deeply and dearly, and I met in Antrim, and I think that happened for a lot of us, where we met each other up in New Hampshire at Dick's workshop. I mean, the talent, and probably one of the best glass painters in the United States, if not the world. She's done autonomous work. She's brilliant. She's also worked in a production environment. She's headed up Legacy Studios as art directors, and she's here with us today, Nikki Vogt. Also, a gentleman, gifted artist, Troy Moody, who I met at Antrim. So these are lifelong friendships for me that happen in these educational environments. Troy has taken vitreous paint and taken it and included it in some just fantastic artwork that incorporates a lot of fusing. He has worked in architectural elements. He's environments, gallery. He does high-end shows, and he's also a teacher as well at the Mesa Art Center in Arizona. And his whole life is focused around glass. A good friend again, who I met in Antrim, lifetime friend, John Erickson. John, I think, John, when I met you, as a wedding photographer, an avid sailor, born and raised in the north side of the East Coast, and ended up down in Savannah, Georgia, but came to Antrim, as I understand it, through an employer of his who was a friend of Dick. So he has a history with Dick that goes beyond most of us here. He knew him years before he started teaching, or probably took the very first class at Antrim. But again, John has a signature style. He's a master painter and glazer. He does restoration work, new autonomous work, architectural, and he does wonderful autonomous panels. And he's been amazing. All of you have been amazing with donating to our charity auction. So with that, welcome everyone, and to the speakers. I mean, I don't know, I speak for all of you. Even when we did the dry run, where the 5 of us checked to see if we weren't, like technically challenged, we all came in, and the next thing I know, 20 minutes have passed where we started talking stories, because we haven't had a chance to come back together. So I appreciate that opportunity. And I thought, for the context of today, it may be helpful, to share some pictures of Antrim, so what we're talking about. Many of these images that you'll see were images of panels that adorned the studio and the house. This one in particular was done by Dick's wife, Vicki. She had done a self-portrait of Dick, and it's something we're all very familiar with, seeing this panel. And I tell you, I can speak personally for this. The love of purchasing and owning other people's work began in Antrim for me, because Dick had a lot of other artists' work. So we collected one another's work, and it's really, wonderful. These are just some of the houses. Every window, every space was filled with work that Dick had either purchased or made himself. Many of us own some of these, and this whole concept facilitated the class where he could fit a 5x7 piece of window glass into the kiln. So most of us never worked any larger than 5 inches by 7 inches on window glass. So in order to get a full panel, you cobbled it together like a tic-tac-toe grid. And he started to make a lot of these illustrative panels that he began to sell, and you would see quite a bit. This is an image of a piece that Nikki made during one of our classes.
I own that.
There you go. I love this. And all of us saw this every day, his portrait of Frederick Douglass. I know that some of these items went up for bid after Dick passed away. I actually have the original conceptual sketch for this window. And some of us through a decade literally saw this window come to life, from a cartoon to painting it, to the actual finished piece, from 1 year coming back and seeing it installed into one of the doors that led out to one of his many outside porches. Dick was very much involved. He is one of the original founders of the American Glass Guild. He created our logo. He was responsible for putting together the original people that started the organization and what he had dreamed it would become. He also supported a lot of other artists. This particular picture came from an auction that he held on his property, that was to support, I believe there was a flood or there was a problem for a couple artists that he wanted to raise money for. And I think all of us have these pictures with Dick's signature mustache and crazy hair. Again, some images that we all are very familiar with that Dick would do for the classes. That's the backside of a watercolor that one of the students had made, Judy had made for Dick. I think the original one was donated to our auction, the American Glass Guild auction. So these are just some of the classic pictures that I took, and some of you shared with me that I put together. Very sweet picture of Dick and Vicky. And again, this is the totem that Dick had asked and invited particular artists to come in and create a panel that would register top and bottom to another panel. A theme was given, and it was a figure. And Nikki's is on this particular totem. I know of 2 that he did that I have photographs for.
So top to bottom, who are these artists?
The very top, which isn't in here, is unfortunate. Is Sylvia is the portrait. Dick Millard did the second, which is his shoulders. Vicki, you have to jump in. I don't know who the next panel was.
Susie Sargent did that. Susie Sargent did that panel that week because Chris Gershling bailed on the project.
Who did the middle with the hips? Who was that one? Is
that was
Peter?
Jane. Yeah, that's
Peter. The next one down is Vicky's.
Yeah.
I'm not sure of the face. Who was the face?
That one's mine.
Oh my gosh. Okay, that's awesome. And then Nikki's at the bottom. I often thought to myself, where do these belong? And I know that John, you just got the shoulders was given to you. Mary Lou gave that to you. She bought it at the auction online with when stuff went to a public auction, and I spoke with her as well just a few days ago, and she felt she had 10 years with it, and it was time for someone else to really enjoy it. and you had recognized it, I think, in a photograph of hers.
I think so, yes.
Yeah, winner, winner, chicken dinner on that one you got.
Yes.
So that's something very much in the manner that Dick would work, would have us do a piece 2 times, and we would wax them up on these little light boxes that we would all work off of. And he would work on one of them on the left, and then we would bring the one to the right up to speed. So that was how he conducted a lot of his classes with the students. You know, some of us that would come back year after year, of course, with his permission, we would get a little bit of a reprieve and kind of work on some of our own stuff. But he really tried to keep the class moving with a certain size of a piece that we could accomplish in a week and still learn.
Well, that was kind of an atypical photograph though, because it ain't Fred.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I think in the classes that I did, you know, and John, I don't know about you, we did Fred heads, but we were able to move along.
Oh,
I was talking with Don about this particular, this is a zoom in of a head that is one of Dick's panels. This is very much his style, where he had this beautiful transition, and a lot of it was working dry. But he had this methodical way and such a fine touch with hog's hair brushes and a very vertical from top to bottom strokes that he could get transitions that seemed seamless and very classical highlights and you know, and I love this piece, you know, because that just reminds me of how he painted, you know, and
I love that the veil she has, or the head head where she has, it's like diaphanous or something.
If I remember right, this might have been one of the ones that was painted in sodium silicate. That's never been fired to my knowledge.
no, it's in a panel. It's in a panel, and I think I have it in the file for this. Is a good dovetail, John. So
That was his tribute to Harry Clark panel.
okay,
Yep.
okay.
I was going to say that.
Let's see
I
here.
remember he had a couple panels that were painted in sodium silicate that he claimed had never been fired, and they were glued on there.
I'll do it on here.
Right. So this is a
Yes.
close-up of that totem that his wife, Vicki Millard, and what I was saying this morning when I was showing some of these photos to Don, she was and still is exceptional and loves to acid etch. So there's a lot of hydrofluoric aciding here. And she created a book on acid etching, which I believe you can still get, and I would recommend that it be in your library. Don said that he owns the book and that he would put a link up, but it's very thorough about acid etching, which I thought she was brave just producing a book about it.
I'll try to find it.
Right. We'll get it. Her paint style was very much, when you look at this, you know, it's very simplified, but it could be a vinegar spritz that's happening on there. It wasn't like overtly painted and deep details. It was her extraordinary imagination and relationship with color and acid etching was just fantastic.
Hey, Kathy, can I interrupt for 1 second? I got a message back from Vicki.
Good.
She said, as I write this, I'm hiking and phone reception is not ideal. All I want to do is say that Dick would be proud that you continue to honor the finest traditions of stained glass painting. Best wishes, Vicki.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you. It makes my heart sing that she reached out. I did send an invitation to Indra. Dick felt very, very highly of her.
I'm here. Am I in, guys?
Hey,
Hey. Yeah. I had to get away
Where
from
are
video
you? Can't
gaming with
see
my
you.
son. He's pissed.
Okay.
But yeah, sorry, I wanted to chime in. Yay, I'm good. Thank you for sending me the invite. Go ahead.
Yeah. So there were certain students that even if you weren't in the class with these students, Dick would just glow and gush over many of the students, and I know that he would be amazed, Indra, at how you've honored glass and glass painting throughout your career. Indra's the lead painter and designer for Judson Studios and is just about ready to wrap up an unbelievable monastery out on the West Coast, which is single-handedly, and she's teaching and working with apprentices and assistants. So it's exciting to see that come together. Judson's very good about marketing their work. So occasionally, if you follow that studio, you'll be lucky enough get in there and look at some of the work that Indra's doing. I think the East Coast misses you, though. I know that.
Oh my God, I do too. I mean, so I'm an East Coaster and I'm not really big on the marketing stuff. Like, oh no, they're posting me again. but yeah, it's funny with Dick because he would always go on about studio people and who he deemed okay. So hopefully he'd be okay with me working at Judson, as a studio artist.
That's awesome.
He'd be okay with you working.
And Indra, I'm going to mute you as you walk. So
what ended up happening too here, and I not only did I post this picture because of Indra's connection to Antrim and one of the true alumni of the school, because she came back multiple times, is we see Roberto in the background. And I can remember, Roberto, when you first met Indra, you couldn't stop talking about how beautiful this young lady was in this class that you took. And why am I here? Roberto would say, I don't paint and I don't know this, but it was his way of vacationing every summer to get away from work and paint. So I was so excited to see the two of you in the same shot. But that was a class right behind him. You walked out into the kiln area where we would fire. And I think I owned some of those stools, but we had these stations and we had the freedom to come and go. And it was quite an amazing environment.
And we all had to sign the stools.
Yeah, we signed all the stools. But this is a shot of the classroom. It wasn't isolated to this room. He had an area where there was a library, and he had an area where you could go outside and sit at a picnic table and talk. And so you moved in and out of his home quite easily, and it was wonderful. You really had this kind of environment.
Yeah, I want to chime in real fast here, Kathy, and just on what you were saying about, Roberto feeling, maybe a little bit intimidated at one point when he went into the studio. I definitely felt that way, especially seeing, Nikki and Indra and Kathy and John, like these incredible painters. And, but the fact that Dick was always so encouraging and supportive of all of us, like whatever direction we were taking it, it didn't take long for that intimidation to vaporize. And then you just felt like we were all equals, hanging out, learning, painting for a week.
Yeah, it absolutely felt that way. And sometimes it felt like when you would come back the following year and see, see new students and see familiar faces, and it didn't take long just to get right back into where you felt like you had just left the week before. It was hard to leave and figure out what you're going to do the entire year to wait to come back.
Joey was 12 over here.
What's that?
Joey was 12 years old in that picture.
Yeah, you know what? Some of these I put up, I think we were so young back then. It's kind of hard.
Wow.
And Crosby is still, and he's in Vero Beach. I believe he turned 93, and is still loves to have phone calls and reach out to say hello.
That's Crosby Willett, senior advisor of the AGG and one of the principals of the prior form of Willett Studios.
So this particular, I don't know if some of you would share with this. It wasn't unusual. I mean, it felt like every class we had an outing. We either went to Sylvia's home, which was maybe an hour or so away, or Dick would take us, to a tour. It was a way to break up the week. And I need to know what his name was. Does anybody remember?
Tom Myers.
Tom Myers. That's Tom's Hobbit Hole.
Right. He had a house built in the side of a mountain, that he designed. So he would open up his home to have us come and visit. And I just was so amazed at this picture. I thought I just need to share this. And
Who is the lady?
that's Sylvia. That's Sylvia. I wonder if she's on today.
Who is Sylvia?
Sylvia Nichols.
Who is Sylvia Nichols?
Okay, go ahead.
What?
Yeah.
What? I mean, you got 57 people
I
here.
know.
You know?
I know.
Sylvia
She's the
the
senior
fourth
advisor of
generation.
the AGG, the daughter of Joep Nicholas,
Yo, yeah.
one of the best glass painters in the world.
And she's fourth generation, and her son Diego continues to paint fifth generation Dutch artists. She is in her 90s and is still very active and continues commissions in glass and very much a sculptor, bronze sculpting and for bronze statuary. Does a lot of public work.
So much fun to talk to her.
Yeah.
Man, meeting Sylvia and also Tom here, like those little extracurricular, outings that we would go on were so super inspiring
That's
for
half the
me.
education right there.
I mean, I absolutely fell in love with Sylvia, and like she was so on fire even 10, whatever that was, 15 years ago, where she would just wake up excited to paint or draw or do whatever creative pursuit she was into.
Mhm.
And then seeing Tom and his lifestyle and how he was living his art and his mosaics and his prints. That to me was huge, to just see like these other artists living in such a true way and, pursuing their own vision and their own voice.
Well, just the way that Dick taught us to paint with the alcohol mat and everything is really kind of linked in with Sylvia and Yope. I mean, that was his Yope's thing. That's how he painted. And meeting Sylvia and hanging out with her is every bit as educational as the workshop in itself. It was just an amazing thing.
I think Kelly and Mary Lou are both in this meeting right now, whose picture flew by.
I'm going to try to move through some of these class pictures.
On that too.
Yep. And we've got Nikki busy.
Nikki's one of the only people who likes to work with the thing up in the air, like Lynn Durham. Yeah.
No, she actually down.
I work waxed up.
Shocked waxed
Oh,
up. Yeah.
So that's an Antrim school thing, huh?
That's an Antrim school thing. Well, no, waxing up is the traditional way of working. I mean, that's the way you work on multiple pieces of glass.
Yeah.
And that's the photograph that Kathy just showed. I'm glad that you're including these, because this was the only time that I can remember that we worked on multiple pieces of glass waxed up in a composition, which is a totally different discipline than just working on one piece of glass waxed up. Because you have to deal with paint being sucked behind the glass and all sorts of crazy stuff.
Dripping down. Yeah.
Especially with the alcohol mat, because alcohol mat, you put it on there and it can be messy.
I love this picture for a couple reasons, because obviously it's a Fred head. But how many of you all remember trying to look through Dick's hair while he painted? And another was the story that he had about the Millard stipplers that he's using in this picture, where he had his brushes and they were worn and to a deerfoot shape just by wear and tear and use, and they were stolen. All of his brushes were stolen from a public transportation when he was on a train, I believe. And so he went and had these made to mimic years of wear. And many of us own the Millard stippler, which he has right here. That's another shot. I had to get away from his hair, I think, so I could see what he's doing.
Hey, I want to interrupt for a second.
Sure.
That's so funny, that picture that you put up of the t-shirt where he drew the monogram of himself. He drew rats in his hair with nests.
Yeah, that was the first time I'd noticed that when she put up that picture. Like,
Yeah.
that bird
I'll
nest.
have to bring that picture back up. That's
I think
hilarious.
they were birds, weren't they? Bird nest.
Right.
They were rats, I think.
And those stipplers actually there was a whole set. There's like maybe 3 different sizes or 4.
I think at least
4, I think.
Yeah, 4. Celeste Parendo, Nick Parendo's daughter, was in some of the classes as well. So this is what you say, Troy, that you wouldn't know what would happen, and all of a sudden along comes like the most amazing people in our lifetime in history of glass painting. You, Charlie Lawrence, who was also a senior advisor. He was a lead painter and designer. He started at Rambush. He worked for 17 years for Willett Studio. And then the remainder of most of his career was an independent designer. And then you have Nick Parendo, who was the owner and principal of Hunt Studios in Pittsburgh. So they would come visit and they would stop by, or they would be invited in a master's class. So you just sat there and shook your head on who else would come into this. You didn't know from week to week. You didn't say, oh, we're going to bring this person this year. You would just turn around and next thing you know, walking through the studio door would be somebody like this. You're total shock. And it was so awesome. And I have, at the auction, I was able to purchase one of Sylvia's Conte Crown color. And I also did,
Lucky
to make
woman.
everybody jealous about it, was when the auction happened with Dick's work, there were lots. So I would get a bunch of stuff that would come in a box, and lo and behold, I opened the box and there was another one of her drawings was in the box, along with 3 or 4 of her father's original cartoons.
Wow.
Stained glass
Wow.
cartoon. So that was amazing.
Her father, Yoep, is internationally, known. I mean, Sylvia is internationally known, but Yoep is probably one of the best known glass painters in the world.
He worked and was a lead painter and designer for Rembrandt on the East Coast. So this was a master's class that we took, where Sylvia and I think Deborah Coombs was involved, and so was Charlie. That they all had a day or day and a half to share kind of their technique, and it's funny to see Kelly and the 3 of you there are in there. And I think I see Matt and Alan just watching Charlie. Many of us own multiple pictures like this. We always took a class shot at the end of the class or in the midst of the class. We didn't leave a class that we didn't have our pictures. It would be fun one day to see all of the class photos, of who are in here. Some of these people, I wonder where they're at. We lost Linda Lickman at the top. She's kind of where the doorway is this past year. She passed away. We've lost a few people in this photograph.
It doesn't look like Troy had even gone through puberty.
He's got the baby face.
Yeah, little kid. Long time ago.
And who could not know Buddha? Charlie and his faithful companion Buddha. He would bring. And there's Troy. So I tried to do my best to show some of these, these pictures that we had. And
We're only at 11:35. I think we're doing okay.
hey, that's awesome.
In all these photos right here that you're showing, if you look in all the backgrounds, all the windows have stained glass in them, and they're all autonomous. Most of them are autonomous panels just hanging there, and they're everywhere. The whole house was just littered with glass.
Was that Tom's work that's hanging on the wall, the mosaic? See it to the left of
It is.
Yeah.
Yes.
I have a little piece that I ended up buying off of the auction. He donated to one of our original auctions, and I bought the little piece. Either that or I bought it from him. But he's
Do you remember what happened to that dancer that Sylvia had done that had a red background and I think a white figure, and it was hanging in the stairwell at Dick's?
a lot of her
that.
panels went up to auction, when they
Look, there's Maria and Kathy and John. Is Maria here?
I reached out to her hoping that she would come. And it was always beautiful weather in August up there. I mean, even though it would be hot, it was just really
So much beer and good conversation was had at that picnic table.
I was hoping Pete would be around. Peter
I tried to get up there whenever I could, illegitimately.
He's the all-purpose Pete.
Yeah.
If I go back to this, I look sometimes. That was the doorway behind them is what led you into the house. You walked through, and that cabinet that has drawers open, I probably left them open because that's where the paintbrushes were and all those drawers that he would sell. He would sell brushes, and right on the other side of that wall was this library that you would sit in a big leather chair and you would just sit there and read these books. And
Smelled like cigarette smoke.
yeah, probably.
Coffee.
Coffee.
And there's Ann Wolf, you know, and the fellow, now why is his name's out of my
Chris Kirschling,
Chris,
Yes.
yeah.
the man afraid of cows.
And look at you can see the cartoons on the walls to the left is one of those, it looks like almost an exquisite corpse.
Yeah,
cartoon.
the totem.
Yeah, that's
I think-
one of the flesh totems. That's I think a second one.
Right. He may have created all of the panels for one himself. It would have been all of his work, but it's the same. Again, I took some overall shots of the busyness of these classes.
Are we reminiscing about funny things that happened during these photographs? 'Cause remember the first year I was there,
Absolutely. Yeah.
Kirschling and I were camping in the yard. I used to like to camp at Dick's because it was, hanging out with Dick well into the night was half the education. And you all who hung out at the inns really missed out on half of, you have no idea. But anyway, this one night, there were cows just down the road, and Kirschling, this big guy from Green Bay, was in a tent next to mine, and the cows started lowing in the middle of the night, and I heard all this rustling in there. And the next morning, I went into the den that had the little love seat in it, and there was Kirschling, who must have been well over 6 feet tall, curled up on that little love seat because he had gotten scared, and the cows had scared him, and he ran and slept in the house.
Nice.
And they scared me too. I was camping that year. You were staying down in the haunted bed and breakfast, John, telling me ghost stories. And I was in a tent in Dick's backyard, and I heard the bell on a cow. And all I could think of was like the haunted schoolmaster's ghost walking around or something. And
Yeah, that's right. I did stay in the haunted inn the first year, and after that I slept in the yard. It was more fun to sleep in the
yeah,
yard.
it was creepy out there.
Now there's an image for you. Charlie was full of stories.
Right.
Jockstrap of Bob Worm.
I thought I was gonna have to gouge my eyes out one year. I walked out the door, and there was Charlie in nothing but a pair of teeny tiny running shorts. It's like, oh my God.
Charlie
There he
acted
was.
like his paints. He would spray his paints, to
Yeah,
get
that's he's using that atomizer. And I remember, specifically in that workshop, struggling with trying to figure out how to get it to work. And he kept saying, you just got to tighten up your asshole.
Yeah. You gotta hold your ass just right.
Do you remember when Dick came in there and he was like, Charlie, what the fuck are you doing? You're gonna blow your goddamn brains out.
And he liked,
Blowing liquid lead.
yeah, he liked to talk to women about that. Just squeeze your ass cheeks together. I'm like,
He
okay.
could be a real horse's rosette when he chose to be.
Hey,
Here, don't we? I tell you.
this is Mary Lou. Can
Hi,
you
Mary
guys
Lou.
hear me?
Yeah.
Hey, Charlie asked me one year, he said, hey, where did that ever go? Where did that piece ever go? And I said, Mark Thompson from Canada. You gave that to Mark Thompson. And he said, I did. And I said, yeah, that's who ended up with it. Because he didn't remember where it went. Yeah.
Okay.
I remember he gave it to somebody after the workshop.
Yeah, it was Mark Thompson. And he was wondering where it went because he really liked it.
I love little Troy's little Freddy head stickers.
Yeah, actually, so those little images that you keep seeing pop up.
Oh, my sister from another mister. Freddy type poison.
These are
The Patrick Renchins.
yeah, I had to put them in there. I just thought they were hilarious, you know. So I go back, one of these photographs that I saw earlier, and then I'm going to move on. And because I'm in charge of the photographs, I can bring it up for myself here. I'm looking at the rat there, Nikki, and everything in his hair in this one, you know. Yes, you're right.
Oh, there is a rat. Yeah. There's birds too.
Right by the 3.
Right. This was the piece and the year that I learned that I could use kerosene and Venetian terps and on a float bed, and I think that year changed the way I painted, because it was all a process of application and removing dry. And when I realized you could work with oils, it just was like a light switch for me. So it was a really pivotal year that summer, you know, to learn how to do that. But you didn't walk into those classes saying that you wanted to try that. It would be something that Dick would suggest and would tell you, you're ready to try. You need to do this or you need to do that. You moved at the pace that he felt you would move. Whether or not you had to take painting 5 times, that's just how it worked, you know, before you moved into another one. And most of us didn't question it, you know, because even you could have taken painting 10 years in a row and still never learned everything that he had to teach.
So would there have been a guest lecture, like teaching that oil stuff, or that was just part of his advanced class?
I would say, I can't speak for any other classes that he had, but I think more of an advanced class. But there was a disparity in ability within our classes. You know, I mean, yeah. Nikki's painting ability versus what mine was or something, you know, she was much further advanced. I know with me personally, I would learn as much from the people that were within the class, you know, that I did from Dick himself. So that was always really an awesome thing.
If anybody has any, like most of you are teachers, if any of you have any comments about what format would work better, or what you don't do that the Antrim school does, that would be interesting to me. Just maybe you don't have anything, but if you feel like voicing, well, we don't do that anymore, I'd like to hear it.
I know in the images that I have, you know, that I'll show in a little bit, you know, I kind of put certain images in that reflect some of the way I teach. Peter, I know as a student, you know, taking your class, you know, and I took them enough times where I felt like the same way with Dick. Every class had something new, you know, and his work evolved, you know, where the inclusions and the drop-ins of color were something that was more towards the latter classes that I took, rather than trying to cut every tiny little piece and fusing it together. But even his work evolved with, I think, a master in enamels early on was Peter, you know, because a lot of his color came in from glass pigment. And then when fusing came into his work, it was amazing. And the way he taught. But you always had structure, Pete. You know, he ended, you know, he started with photographs and slideshows, and some days had a slideshow towards the end of the day. And there always felt like there was a format. But I think out of all of us, Pete, and it was difficult. So kudos to you. He would teach at other people's studios. And just that in itself is a challenge. You know, and it wasn't, I think, and correct me, Pete, if I'm wrong, that there was only a few years that you taught directly out of your own studio out in Washington, but you taught remotely as well as in your own studio. But there always was, you could count on it. And we collaborated in his classes where the group made a community piece, and there was structure that way. So I always appreciated that, and learning that what you could do with fusing and hiding the seams of the glass with paint strokes, you know, was amazing. I'm just going to move through these pictures as I talk. They might not coordinate with what we're talking about. But these are images from the auction, and some of the,
Let me interrupt. We do have a question from the chat. They ask, can you describe the curriculum and how one would advance from one level to the next? So maybe just a really quick overview of the Fred head, and that would be useful to some of the people that have never attended Antrim.
I'm Nikki, and I was thinking about that too because I saw that come up in the chat as a question. And it pretty much, he made everybody start off doing the beginner stuff, and then he would kind of place people if he didn't already know what you were capable of. I think that's how he did things. Is he pretty much made paint Fred head.
That start was that Fred head that we keep seeing, and you paint that, and it's a multi-step, multi-mat, and you paint it upright the way he teaches you with the pigments that he teaches you, and that is the painting 101 or whatever it was, and
it would go, that's great, kiddo, and I'll wipe it off and do it again.
right.
Actually, he had two different ways of saying it. He would say, that's not too bad, kiddo.
Yeah, not
or he would emphasize the two. That's not too, that's not too bad, kiddo. That was better. Not if you emphasize the bad.
I don't think that I got, it was always like, yeah, that's quite passable.
Lovey.
Like,
yeah.
Right. I think with the Fred heads, because with the auction pieces, I got a lot of papers and invitations to the class, a lot of his templates for the heads that he would do in the series that he had envisioned and whatnot. And it was very much, there was a piece of paper that had literal brush strokes, from top to bottom, left to right, circles, line width difference and variation. So the heads that he would have us work on, the Fred head, incorporated all of the strokes that he felt were foundational. And then when I was there was a community palette where we weren't really learning so much how to mix paints together. It was pre-mixed. You were using a community palette. I can remember him just cursing that somebody mixed a new batch and the Arabic was too much, and he would, God damn it, who made, and nobody ever wanted to mix the paint because if you didn't do it right or if it was too soft. So, but it was always the same color. Everything was the same color.
You liked a hard mat too.
And I remember he fired things where it was a tack fire to move things through. So everything, I didn't realize for years that your stuff you made didn't have a chalky surface to it. You could actually get a gloss to it if you fired it a few more minutes. But
some days you were lucky if it didn't wipe off.
I talked him into allowing me to do the Fred head with a face of Christ I found in one of those drawers in that room. You open it up and there was his random artwork. And I found this face that he had done of Christ. And I said, this in the spirit of Fred and learning, can I use this face? And he said yes, for me, that I could. And so these were some of the images that I had that were my later distant cousins, my Christ cousin to Fred, so.
I'll bet Dick appreciated it when people chose to break out of Fred a little bit, because he must have been sick of Fred. I
don't think that he realized it was going to be such a phenomenon. That everybody would be something that would connect all of us. We all have our own Freds.
Does anybody have an image of the one that John did when Dick died with the silver stained tear?
I sure do.
I sent it to Kathy, so she should have it.
And look at Peter's picture. Peter's showing it right now. Yeah,
I keep it in my living room. I'm looking at it right now.
And actually, one of them went into the stickers. So that's John's crying Fred.
I have a sticker in my living room right now.
So this was a piece that I was able to buy at the auction.
Sylvia did that when I painted with her
during one of our workshops. And this was what inspired Nikki at that, which I own as well. I got this panel.
I met that panel before I met Nikki, and I was just fascinated.
Oh my God, I love this, Nikki.
Such a cool thing.
Yeah, I mean, just I don't know if Cliff Oster's online or if he was able to connect, but his silver stain was so beautiful and saturated where you could get this kind of mottled transition in color within just one application.
I am
That was,
here.
I was going to ask you if Cliff
Are you-
Oster had got. Oh, there he is. Hey,
Hello.
Cliff.
Something
It took me a while to get on,
Hey, Cliff.
and Marcia just showed me how to turn the, I guess the the microphone on. But I've been listening the last half hour, and
Yay.
it's just so fascinating, and it's so great to see all these photos and to see all of you and to sit back and reflect on Richard Millard. And thank you for putting this all together.
Well, thank you for your stain. I think I have enough. I think I have enough to supply me maybe for the rest of my life. But if I run out, I'm going to be very, very, very upset. I'm going to
Yeah, I was
cry.
going to say, Cliff is the one that called me and told me that Dick had died.
Well,
And
you know,
I called Charlie, and Charlie was fighting with Dick at the time. They hadn't spoken in like a year. And I kept trying to tell them, quit this stupid shit and talk to each other. Both of them were too proud to do it. And when I called Charlie and told him that Cliff had just called me and told me that Dick died, Charlie burst out crying. You know,
it was, I was coming back from Argentina and I got a call from Vicky, and it was like, no, it was just so horrible.
Well, these, like I think Vicky said, with the message that Nikki sent, that this would be, he'd be very happy about this. And I would have no doubt that Charlie and Dick are still having some interesting conversations right now. So
I would hope so. I hope they're getting along.
So I found some of these images that I'm showing right now were really, I had never seen them while I was up in his studio, but some of Dick's cartoons, you know, for stained glass windows are just fabulous. I mean, so I have that, sorry, let me go back here.
Well, back about Nikki's image that she painted. That was these were, I'm assuming, Nikki, because this was, I was not a class that I'm in, but this was when Sylvia came and did her little spiel, I think.
Yeah, Sylvia came and she was doing a demonstration panel, and
so all this was spontaneous. There was not cartooned or anything. That was just painted.
It was that.
Yeah, no, she came and did that panel right there that they're showing now. And Dick invited people to go over and try it. And I think most people were really intimidated because she was Yope Nicholas' daughter, you know. And I was so stupid. I just said, I want to do it. And I went over there and she let me paint on that piece. And then I did the second one.
Do you see that there's the only silver stain in this is he's giving her a ring. So the little ring in the lower right-hand corner is silver stain, the yellow ring.
Wouldn't that be Tosh? Don't you remember Patrick Renson's telling us one discordant color in a piece was a Tosh?
Oh,
I don't remember that, but honestly, meeting Sylvia and watching her work was probably one of the biggest
very close
that I got out of that class. Her spontaneity and the fact, because Dick was a tight ass wasp, as he would describe himself, and Sylvia was so loose and spontaneous. And watching her work for that one or two workshops that she participated in was as much of an influence on me as anything, because it really opened up a whole new world.
John, I agree with you. You know, I was sitting right next to you watching her do that, and then watching Nikki knock that one off so quick. And I'm thinking, you know, as a stained glass artist, you spend weeks and weeks sandblasting, layering, leading, puttying, soldering.
Yeah, it takes the fun to be that way.
Yeah, it takes the fun out of making an expression you just thought you'd like to see. Exactly. And that day rocked my world too.
Absolutely. I'm glad I'm not the only one.
No.
Not at all.
I agree. So one of the workshops where actually Sylvia it was Sylvia, Charlie, and Deborah Coombs each taught like 2 days for a week.
Yeah, that
And so
master.
each of their, they're obviously very different techniques, but their approach and like the way they made it is so graceful and spontaneous. And I remember Sylvia saying, I want to say that her dad said to her, but she was fussing about a painting and he said, just do it like you're eating a sandwich.
Yeah.
Like just
And it's
paint
true,
it, just
don't
do
get
it.
so
Like,
wrapped up in it.
yeah.
Vicky,
Minimal cartoons and multiple layers and single firing and have fun. That was it. It should be fun.
I think
That,
Vicky,
I think
you described
that's Linda Lickman, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
She just recently died, and I'm so glad I got to meet her. But yeah, Sylvia was all about having fun with it. She was like, "Why did you start drawing in the first place?" And I said, "Because I love to." And she said, "It's supposed to be." And I remember Dick always saying, "Pull that stick out of your ass, Lovey." And I thought to myself, "My God, anybody with a stick up their ass is you."
Red Dick.
So the last few images that I've shared, like I said earlier, and when we first started, I fell in love with the images and the panels and the artwork that Dick would amass and collect, and if Dick asked to keep a piece or you gave a piece and you came back the next year and it was out, it really meant something that he would have your work. So I decided it's brought me the most joy, by the way. This is in my office studio where I am surrounded by amazing artwork. Jacques Duval to the left, Sylvia, Deborah Belchin. She donated this to the American Glass Guild. She's an amazing potter, sculptor, and that's a color pencil portrait she did at an auction. And that's Yope Nicholas's cartoon that I had gotten at the auction. Vicky Millard's piece. I own that piece now. So I get to see these
Don't
things.
brag.
This is a student of mine.
Wow.
Produced this piece in one of my classes, and I bought it from him because I just was amazed at what he was doing. Is that you, Cliff?
I think so, but other people in my family do not. So if you go back to it for a second.
All right, let me just say this, Troy, that's your piece. Okay, Peter Billington's piece is in here. Some of my students are in here, and that's Linda Lickman's. Thank you, John Erickson. I love this piece, that's in my window. I see it every day. Indra, oh my God.
I'm so jealous.
I know, that's amazing. And this was a piece that I had gotten that I found in the auction of Dick's. It was in the middle of some stuff.
That was the Sylvia drawing, wasn't it?
Yeah, let me go back to that piece for Clef. So this is only about 5 by 7, if that. They were in a portfolio, and every page I turn over, I have a lot of his pencil drawings, and this card and 2 other ones were there. And he had done Albin, and I think it may be in this group. Let me just see. There was
Yeah, you showed one earlier. That's Albin.
Oh, yeah.
So that's the same size. They were all together, the 3 of them. So
Yeah.
that looks like that sketch, Peter, of the Harry Clark tribute.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
So this was his thumbnail of a lot of these things. I have the thumbnail sketches.
I have that window, Kathy. I'm interrupting you, but I have that bottom window.
Oh,
I have
really?
the window. Yeah, I have the window. I had it framed
Wow.
and I have it. It's magnificent.
I need to really take a good high resolution picture of this for you, Mary Lou, and get it to you, because it'd be nice to the provenance of that, or put them together, or put it on the back of the picture. I think would be.
I'd love it. Thank
easy.
you.
I'm glad
We've
you
been at
framed
this
it.
for an hour now. I think it's going okay. I'm not inclined to change the flow.
Right. So let me go here. I have to show this because I don't know that Skippy is with us, but today I did speak with him on the phone. He has a flip phone. He says he does not do email. His sister I never did connect with his sister to send a link.
Who is Skippy?
Skippy was the lives in and around Antrim. He's a musician. He was the inntaker at the Uplands Inn that we stayed at. That's how we met him. And he was
Mississippi.
Mississippi, yeah, he was friends with Dick, and he made sure that a lot of the students that stayed came to wherever Skippy was. You know, some of us stayed at hotels for a little while, and then the Uplands Inn was he was the innkeeper there. He said some of the best, he did tell me, lifelong friends, and the best time of his life was when he was the innkeeper there. He just really loved meeting all of us and seeing us. So this was the view in and around that Uplands. So to me, this captures what New Hampshire was like.
You remember Skippy was in a jazz band with the only black guy in New Hampshire, and his name was Luther Guitar Jr. Johnson.
Didn't we go see him play one?
We did at the, I can't
one
remember the
night?
name of that place, but it was right across from the inn. That's the
Yeah,
backyard
right
of
over by
the
the
other.
grocery store.
Yeah, right next to that grocery store.
Yeah.
I remember one, I was going to say night, but I guess it ended up being morning at the Uplands. Nikki, where you and I think, John, I think a whole mess of us had stayed at Dick's, you know, practicing and painting and hanging out late into the evening. And then and I went back to Uplands, and we sat out on that little sun porch and just talked until we could hear the birds singing. And we knew, oh, we better go crash out for an hour.
There were some of us that would walk, remember? There were, it was
Yeah.
about, I guess, what, maybe a half
It was
hour.
3
walk.
miles.
It was
3 miles.
easier to go to the class because it was downhill. To walk home, you know, and you'd be sweating by the time you got there and everything. But we did that. And then Nikki, I swore I wasn't going to do this, but there was a there was a cemetery in.
Oh my God.
Oh my God! So there was a cemetery that some of us would go to at night, you know, and I remember Ann, Maria, or a bunch of us would go there. Okay, and honest to God, some of the stuff that we did, we would try to entertain ourselves, and then at night, every night we ate Italian food. We went to the Alberto's restaurant because they would serve lunch. This beautiful spread that Vicky would put out every year, but dinner you were pretty much on your own, but you would always go to Alberto's. But that was as much a part of all of this to me as it was learning what you learned. It was just this kind of like magical environment. People were camping out, people were at the Uplands Inn. You would walk one day, you would carpool the next day. You know, you could hang out and paint there at night if you wanted to. A lot of us, you had to be on time though at Uplands, you know, when dinner was.
I remember when Patrick Renchins was teaching that class up there, we got so wasted and stayed up so late one night. I remember we went into Dick's dark living room and sat on the sofa to try to listen to Patrick tell us some really good stuff from a master. And I looked around and we had all fallen asleep.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody in the room was asleep except for Patrick, and I don't think he noticed.
Nikki, I remember you calling us all the fuck ups, and I remember Tony Glander, nicest guy on the planet, was woken up by Dick one time during that class. It was so funny. He's like, oh, and we were all falling asleep because we were just partying so much. But yeah, sorry, I have to chime in.
Well, Skippy,
I'm in
memories.
I'm into the albums here of the speakers. So, you know, keep talking, but now this is Peter. Peter shared some images of his own work that he was proud of and wanted to share, and some of the panels and whatnot that he felt really touched him.
I want to be able to walk around this piece and watch the dichroic shifts, but I can't. It's very upsetting.
Right.
Fred has a fence too.
I swapped that with Dick. He gave me a beautiful piece for a wedding present, and I swapped him with this one. Obviously Fred, but the backstory is that Dick hated accordion players. And the story was, at the bar down the street, there was some right-wing flag-waving maniac who would tear out her accordion every night after, you know, the bar was shutting down, and make everybody stand up and sing God Bless America with her, you know, night after night after night. So he had a serious aversion to accordions. It only seemed appropriate.
This is plated, yes? It's all flash glass and plated and,
It's all dichroic on clear,
oh, okay.
sandblasted and plated.
That's why I'm upset I can't move around it and watch the color shifts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened to that one.
It probably got
I remember-
auctioned with the rest of his stuff. Well,
I
it's
remember Dick telling a story about a job that you did in Rochester, a flight or something with dichroic glass, and people were walking into pillars and knocking themselves out because the window
Right.
started out like green and turned all the way to purple by the end or something.
Yeah, yeah. Now looking at the artwork instead of where they were going.
Yeah.
I'd guess Vicky still has that one because of all the auctions I've been to, and I'm kind of an auction hen. I've never seen that one go up.
Yeah,
I've
well,
always
his
watched
kids-
for it. I've never
his
seen
kids
it.
took some stuff too.
So Peter,
What
do
is
me
it?
a favor and jump in here. These are some of your paintings.
Wow.
Feel free
Yeah, I
to-
haven't. I've been focusing more on oil painting lately.
Wow, I
I want
love
to do
it.
my own thing. You know,
Nice.
glasses. I do glass for commissions or whatever comes along. But if I have free time, you know what? I'm living down in Florida. I had to liquidate my studio to come down here. I'm involved in elder care and stuff, so it's a lot nicer to work in an air-conditioned studio painting than to be out in my garage on a light table sweating it out, stippling mats. So yeah, you know, it's just more image making, involving everything I learned from learning how to make pictures in glass. The beautiful thing with oil paint is you're just not stuck with the mechanical prerequisites of working with glass. So I find doing stuff like this way more relaxing and you know, just something different.
That painting right there very much looks like a Peter McGrain.
Oh, I,
Yeah.
I said that to Don. I said, my God, if I didn't know that you sent that, I would turn around and go, my God, that could be Peter's work. You know what I mean? So awesome.
Yeah, that's my old clubhouse when I was 12 years old in 1968.
Peter,
Wow.
how big are these
Wonderful.
paintings?
That one's 36 by 24, I think. So
Are
that took
you
it
selling
took a year and a half to paint.
Wow.
Are you
It's
selling them
funny.
yet, or are you making? Are they just more for your pleasure to make, and then they?
As soon as I start thinking about trying to make money, it's not a very cost-effective way to spend time unless you can hit the high-end collector market. And
Right.
it takes years and years. I'm just doing it for fun.
So
Looks like you were a good shot at with the target, but a really shitty dart player.
All right. Yeah.
I think
I was gonna
that piece with glass in it, I think that exhibits that Peter McGrain's mastery of using saturated primaries and still getting balance out of it. Just the black and the tonal balance and the color balance. You can tell in an instant that it's yours. It's amazing.
Are you talking about this one?
Yeah. No, any of yours. That you have a way of using colors and saturation and tonal variations that other people can't balance it as well.
Go back, Kathy. I want to say something about that previous one.
This one?
She mentioned my workshops, and you know, one thing I learned from Dick was he was really serious about the vocation of glass. And I was coming at it from a whole different thing. To me, it's never a vocation, especially the teaching part. And he used to get mad at me for saying, teaching is as much entertainment as it is passing on knowledge, which out there in the hobby world where I was doing a lot of teaching, it was more important for me that people have fun than if they learn something. Because I saw people come to tears in Dick's workshop, and that just I never liked that. And this is an example of one of the group pieces Kathy had mentioned where, you know, you've got, in this case, 10 people in a classroom. Everybody's learning the technique, but while they're learning it, this device is a way to get everybody involved in one common project, which happens pretty fast. And basically, I would do a sketch or something and then slash it up. You know, it's an old trick. And then each student was responsible for looking at my sketch and then trying to figure out which part of my picture is in their little square, and then they would make it. So this represents the work of at least 10 people. I was teaching a workshop at Ed Hoy's in Chicago. And if you ask me, this should be in the freaking art museum at the Art Institute of Chicago. To me, it expresses everything that I think is important in art. Not perfection, not refined technique, but more of just an abandoned sense of joy and fun, which is so obvious when you look at this piece that whoever made it had fun. And I've always been attracted to the Impressionists for that reason, and more contemporary art.
And no, Pete, I think what you would do, because I had a couple of your images for my classes. One, everybody made carrots. It was all carrots. But what he would do is he would leave the community piece, or at least I don't know if you did this every time. You left that with the host.
Sure, yeah.
Which was cool. So nobody like went crazy because they didn't get it, but it was like a thank you to the, and then it was a marketing piece, left at this Ed Hoy's, but it was.
Right. Free advertising.
Yep, it was genius. You're a genius. Yeah.
Thank you. I think
person.
You know what? I need to say this very quickly. I don't, because now that I've scrolled through on the side, Patrick Grintian's son John is with us. Did you know that? Say hello.
Welcome.
Yeah, and I think everybody.
Hi, John.
Wants to know how your dad is.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for inviting me, Kathy. It's looking at some fantastic work, I must say, really enjoying it.
Thank you.
How's your father?
My pops, he flooded, his kitchen flooded and the floorboards came up, and he was in a home for a little while, and he came back home yesterday, and he's already fallen over, so things are slightly difficult. So I'm going down tomorrow afternoon to see him, and he's 95, so he's having the sort of the problems that you would associate with the average 95-year-old, but at the same time, he's not one to he doesn't want to give up, and he keeps on telling us he's going on till 100, whether we like it or not. And,
Good.
Well, please tell him for me that every picture I take of all my friends, I have them say lesbian.
Lesbian.
Smile.
Make a second lesbian picture.
Lesbian.
yes, I've been in that position many times. Yeah.
Well, say hello to him for us. That we mentioned his name many times, and we think of him. He's also a senior advisor for the American Glass Guild, and he's thought of often. And we're trying to make it where John will join us at Corning Museum of Glass in July. We're working details out as that unfolds. And we look forward to it. So please do tell him he's on in our thoughts, and it's a mobility issue, it sounds like. And so hopefully he'll be safe, and please do say hello.
I certainly will, and that's very kind of you. It's I mean, it's tough, but getting old is tough. So he's doing the best he can, and we're doing the best we can as a family to try and support that, but it's not easy. So it's one of those things, but he's still got spirit. He's certainly he's still naughty.
He's the most kinetic individual I'd ever met.
The most what individual?
Kinetic. Just
okay. Yeah. I like it that he continuously has been very rude towards Brian Clark. And I think it's quite a good thing that someone can be rude to Brian Clark and get away with it. So that's been enjoyable sometimes. Sometimes enjoyable, sometimes I don't know what to think. And but it's, he certainly keeps that one up.
There are stories about your dad from Antrim, certainly. I don't know if we could tell him or not.
I don't think you can shock me as far as my
entertaining stuff. Nikki called him names at one point.
You know what I think we need to do is get photographs compiled, and I have John's email and contact information to share some of those images from the class that your dad might not have ever seen, you know, that many took, so we can put an album together. John and I recently were judges for the Stevens competition, and that's shamelessly got your contact information because we were both judges, John. So I was excited about that.
Yeah.
And I know how much everybody thinks of your father and his importance to the stained glass field, and art glass is monumental. His work. Peter, I'm going to jump in. Is I don't know if I put red marks all over your picture here, or
Yeah, it looks like you were scrolling it somehow. Those little scratches on it.
not a
I was
part of
wondering
it.
what those little things were.
Yeah, no, I saw those go down. You might have been scratching at your pad mouse or something.
Yeah, it's weird.
That's an amazing piece.
Yeah, so
I like to make pieces that remember important friends who have moved on to the great beyond, and that was my accordion version of Dick Millard to your painting world. He was an accordion mentor I played music with for 10 years. An amazing German man.
And I've heard you play the accordion. I've been fortunate enough to watch you do it, and it's just amazing, just the piece of equipment and the musical instrument itself.
Yeah, German engineering.
It is amazing. You know what? It's weird. Is
It's
that
on-
on my screen, which is bizarre. Okay, sorry about that, you guys. I don't know how to fix that right now.
It's
I
not-
remember Peter playing the saw and John playing the guitar, I think, and they were singing Friend of the Devil in the studio one night.
So these are some
Probably
of the
scared the rats away.
Probably.
Yeah.
The cows headed south.
The nesting birds took off.
There's my picture.
Mhm.
So Pete,
That's-
tell me about this one, because that's a
Well, it's kind of interesting. You know, I was at Dick's one time. Nobody was around. I just was passing through Boston and I drove up to see him. And he showed me the sketch for that full door panel you showed a picture of. And I just said, Dick, you know, up until then, I'd never see him do anything other than church work or commission work. He was so hung up on being a studio artist. And he showed me that design, and I said, Dick, you know what? You got to just make this thing. And I'll come up and if you want me to help you let it together or cut the glass, or you just got to do it. He's like, I don't know. It's just a little sketch. I'm not sure I want to do anything like that. You know, and I'm like, okay. And the next time I saw him, I went back to same thing. I was passing through town. I was thinking I was on a job in down in Boston again. And I stopped by and he goes, hey, come on back here, my boy. I want to show you this thing I got. And he pulled this, he had this on his easel and it was finished. I'm like, oh my God, Dick, you did it. It's not the whole design. It's just the portrait of the woman. And he goes, take a closer look. And I looked down in the very corner and he had scripted with clove oil and black ink to my dear friend, Peter and Nancy, all the best, Dick Millard. And it was a wedding. He just gave it to me as a wedding present, sort of a thank you gift. And I treasure it. You know, when the day comes, I'll end up donating it to a glass museum or someplace. To me, it's priceless. And of course, in my studio, anybody who ever took workshops with me, this would be hanging in there. And whenever we'd hit a wall, we'd go, all right, come on, everybody, let's go see how Dick dealt with that. And it's his classic direct painting technique. All this paint was applied in one firing. And to me, that just blows me away. His ability to, blend those mats into the tonal gradations, to pull 4 or 5 separate shades of a color out. In the upper left, that orange goes from light to medium to dark, just from his manipulation of the matting. And the absolute grace and delicacy of the tracing in her hair, to be able to pull brush strokes like that. And then obviously the technical skill to be able to unload, 3 mats in a tracing and a little enamel or something on silver stain on the back and that face in one firing. It's an absolute masterpiece by, I think, one of the greatest masters of all time. That's another group project from a workshop in Norway.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I had every student depict themselves as a character in this Viking ship because everything in Norway is trolls and Vikings. So I had seven wild Scandinavian women and me in this workshop.
Okay, where are you?
It was pretty cool. It's a little island, and it never got dark because it was in June. So we'd be up all night partying and working, and they all knew these. It was really sweet. We'd be working in the studio, and somebody would start humming a song, and next thing I know, I've got a full choir of 7 beautiful female voices singing some traditional Norwegian folk song while we're all sitting there stippling and scrubbing. It was a remarkable, rewarding experience as a teacher. What was that one? Oh, that was from a workshop up at Bryn Athan. And
that's my house.
You like
yeah,
to
you got that? All right, Don.
Awesome.
Yeah, all right, great. And the same thing, it was done as a demo piece, and then I just left it with Ken Leap. Ken Leap was teaching the workshop, and so I just left it there so he could put it into your auction that year. And I'm glad to know it's in good hands now, Don. Thank you.
Pete, I thought I would just show you. This was
all right.
In Bingen. Isn't that awesome? I have a lot of great pictures of your studio. I'll have to send them to you that I took when I was there. That was a magical studio. No matter what room you went in, and it felt, to me, it had that vibe of what was achieved at Millard's studio. No matter what room you were in, you were immersed in some sort of art, whether it was music or glass, or you've collected somebody's paintings, or every room you moved in and out of, it was inspirational. And the colors on the walls and just everything about it was such an inspirational place.
Judy Killian asks, Peter, do you still have your musical tie?
Of course I do. Not handy, but yes, it's around here somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a great workshop. It was also a joy having you there those few times, Kath, just because it nice link to where I know you were coming from as an artist, and like you said, learning from what's going on in the classrooms where other students are doing their own thing. Man, I've picked up so much over the years from people in my workshop, not necessarily things they were doing, but for mistakes or experiments they made. Just 10 people in a room trying to pull something off, you're bound to have some good learning experiences pop up, and it never failed to impress me.
And if you ever got into a place where you're in your own little funk where you couldn't move past something, my goodness, all you had to do was walk, stand up, stretch your legs, and go 1 or 2 people next to you, and you could be engrossed in what they're doing, and moves you out of this place where you can keep going. I can remember, Pete, one of the earlier workshops, somehow I was at the very end of the introduction. He would make us all introduce ourselves, and he goes, we're all here. This isn't about a workshop with anal retentive church painters, so he went on and on. So I ended up introducing myself at the very end of the workshop as the anal retentive church painter, I always loved that I needed your workshops to get out of that anal retention. I mean, because when you were a replication painter, you were really slavish to try to reproduce or to make something of that level. But so it was so nice to be that spontaneous and to lean on what you learned at Dick's, how the material behaves, and then learn something completely different where you don't know how it behaves in fusing. You also taught me something, Pete. I had a student that made a piece, and you had a student that made a piece that broke at the very end, and it was a wedding present, and they had a oh my God, they almost fell apart towards the end of the week. So I always say in the very beginning of the class, like Dick said, that looks great, Lovey, wipe it off. So whenever I have a demonstration and I would make something that was pretty finished and I felt beautiful, and it was on someone's piece and they thought, oh, I'm going to keep this. She just did this. I'd look at everybody and I would turn around and wipe that thing off. And everybody I always would get a gasp, like, why did I just do that? And I would say, that looks great, Lovey, learn, wipe it off and do it again. But I wouldn't let anybody make anything without realizing that it ran the risk of not surviving, because of what you had taught. It said that was bad, there it is.
Oh,
There wasn't
Awesome.
yeah, I love the mask on the top of his head, and just this moment of music, and we enjoyed that. You bring a lot to a class, so I really think that you, in my own personal career journey of glass, you're very much a part of that vocabulary for me. It's
right.
on many levels.
Where was that picture taken?
I think that was an early.
DNL maybe?
It was, but she changed a little bit more sophisticated, in some of her in her workshops. But yes, I don't know, did she stay in the same place?
They moved.
Yeah, they moved. So I think that was the first. I don't know what's going on with those red lines. I'll figure it out after you guys are all gone. So
Use your eraser tool and erase it.
I don't even know.
Probably it's probably on some kind of a like one of those, what is it called?
Layer. You got layers on
Yeah,
there?
layer.
Yeah, it's like a Zoom
I'm in
thing.
a shared drive. I don't even know what's going on. So I'm just going to ignore it, guys.
Just hit Command Z until it goes away.
You know what? And then I'm liable to disconnect myself. I'm just going to ignore this. Okay, John. So some of these are John's, and I think John, you said
That's not mine. That's just something I sent you from that class. That might be Troy's.
Yeah, that's mine.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, I did that right up. Yeah.
Nice.
It actually was a portrait of Kurt Vonnegut right
I
after.
was
he
going to say, it looks like you're Kurt Vonnegut, and I
Yeah.
love the colors.
Yeah.
it is awesome.
The first time I met Dick, I thought that it was Kurt Vonnegut walking into a room. I was at a Dan Fenton workshop.
Yeah.
Little studio.
I thought
I don't,
this looked like Dick to me. You know what I mean? Like a portrait of him. That's interesting.
yeah.
Okay. So this is John's work, very signature of what John Erickson does. I think I could be looking at Jesus and I wouldn't know. It's okay. Your work is very, very much stylized, and I love it.
Well, and that was done during the time that Sylvia came in and did her demonstration the first year that Dick was teaching the classes, and that's a spontaneous one fire kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. You actually took silver stain like Nikki did to a different level, which was, I love the way you would get in one application. These
People are afraid of silver stain for some reason. They're afraid to fire it hot. As long as you're not fusing that carrier to the glass, you can take it up hot. And the hotter you get, the darker it gets, the more interesting it gets.
Nice.
That's the insomniac.
I love some of these pieces. I really do. I mean, you immediately know it's your work, and it's just awesome.
That was part of a much larger composition. That's just a detail. This thing was 4 panels, and that was kind of an interesting thing because this piece was only going to get reflected light, so I had to work on opalescent glass, and I had never done any painting or not much painting on opalescent glass, and it was kind of a challenge to pick and choose which glasses weren't going to strike, and I of course couldn't really have more than just a very, very vague cartoon, so it was kind of an interesting example. And
so you have a whole series of guitars, because I own one of them. You bring them into some of your pieces, and you also plate pieces. You acid etch and sandblast and plate pieces. So mine's a multi-layered as well. So it's so cool when you walk around it, kind of a dimensionality to the work. But
and this one's a detail as well. This was a commissioned piece of a guitar. This guy played a what's that wood pattern called? Quilted, I think. It was a red quilted Les Paul, and this was just his guitar. So this thing is a portrait of his guitar, is how it started out as. Yeah, that's the whole piece.
Oh my God.
And
Isn't that
oddly enough,
awesome?
I've stopped doing mythologically correct mermaids because you know they're monsters. They lured people to their death. That's what mermaids do. Mermaids aren't these sweet things that Disney made them out to be. And
I was gonna say, look at the two guys in the back drowning.
after I painted this piece, that tall ship went down in the storm and 2 people were killed.
Oh,
And I did another mermaid many years before my first mermaid, and I had a drowned sailor in it, and she was kind of coming around, and then the woman who had commissioned it, I had heard through the grapevine during the time I was painting it that her boyfriend had died in a scuba diving accident. So I have stopped doing mythologically correct mermaids because they seem to come true.
okay. Well, we'll leave that one right there. Let me just see here, everyone. Who else have I? Nikki, there you are.
Hey, John, we got a question from the chat. How hot is hot for Silverstein?
Well, I almost routinely fire at the 1250 with everything else. I fire it down usually, but you know, once you get past 1250, you run a risk of softening up the glass and having the carrier stick to stuff. So as long as the carrier doesn't stick to it,
Thank you.
depends on your glass. Some glass are softer than others, but you know,
Now,
if you want a pale stain, you fire it to a low temperature. If you want it to be really intense and crazy, you can really push it.
Do you find that if it's if you heat it up, will it metallize? I mean, when you get up into those temperatures, are you?
Yes.
Yes,
I
but
know
you can
that
use it.
I mean, but some people might not recognize or understand
Well,
that it has this kind of iridescent look to it, and you can
yeah.
almost look and know it's been fired hot because of that.
Well, sometimes I'll take advantage of that, and if I want some of that effect on the front side, I'll stain on the front side. And the only thing with that is that's got to be your first firing.
Okay. So I've got Nikki's work up here now, and again, this is a part of the totem, just a close up of her contribution to that panel.
I don't have a whole image of this. If you have that, I would love to have that picture because I don't have it. That one piece of glass with all those planets on it, that's just one piece of glass that I had at Rambush. And I wanted to use it for something. I just didn't know how I could do it. And so that's where I used it. So that's neat to see the whole piece together. I gave that to Chris Kersling, I think, ultimately.
Wow.
Oh, what a lucky guy. He didn't deserve that.
I think for me personally, you know, what's not to love about Nikki's work or Nikki for that matter and everything else, but I absolutely, I fell in love with this piece, you know, and you left it, you know, for Dick. I don't know who ended up getting this or where this piece ended up being, but it was really powerful for me, you know, and I did a series of Indian women and faces and older people and wrinkles. And I loved and still love this piece.
Thank you.
Yes, I had to, even with the red marks, I loved it.
Yeah, that was hard to decide to do that, but I thought it would look good.
Yeah, and again, it's just, if you were lucky enough to sit next to Nikki and to watch the freedom to which she draws and paints, I mean, that itself was a lesson. You were my triple threat bonus person sitting next. You know, when I walked into the class, not only were you working with Dick Millard, you had, you know, John Erickson painting on one side, and you had Nikki, and then you had Troy, and you had all of these people painting around you. It's a wonder we ever could sit still, you know, trying to learn anything, because you'd want to get up and see what cool things everybody else was working on, you know.
I was thinking about the last and friendships that ended up. Oh, hey, Kelly, I'm sorry. I talked all over you.
That was Nikki's first class, dated 1995.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
Yeah,
Adam,
it was neat to meet the people that we met up there and that we've all stayed pretty good friends. I remember there was a commission I did in New York and this is part of one of the windows. And I had to go over to this church where all these people were so smart and they were all from New York. And here I was, this little girl from Lynchburg, I was nervous wreck. I had to do a PowerPoint presentation. I mean, I was scared shitless. And Indra and Todd, her husband at the time, came and sat in the audience there and asked me questions and made me so comfortable because I realized I know what I'm doing, but I'd completely forgotten it until they started asking me questions. I'll never forget that. I went from freaking the fuck out to calming down and being like, oh, okay, I can do this. There's Indra and Todd, I'm gonna be okay. So it's really cool to have met everybody that I got to meet.
so when Nikki did a commission through Rambush, and it was after 9/11, she left the studio and came back up into Pennsylvania through my studio and worked on that job for Marble Collegian. But it was fun for me just to see how she worked in a large format, so it's very much, you see her essence, the way she draws. You saw it in a few panels that we just showed. So even in larger religious work, it's very much her style, and the way you would see John's style or Troy's style or Peter McGrain. Nikki had a beautiful style and in religious imagery as well. And she also did designs for mosaics. I don't know the mausoleum this is in, Nikki, but it's
Gate of Heaven Mausoleum in East Hanover, New Jersey.
So that's a detail. This gives you an idea of the size of that particular piece. And there's a lot of panels that this goes into. So her work is she worked in a design capacity that'll allow other artists to realize her imagery in her work. And this is a recent group and series of photographs that this very illustrative, beautiful style, mirrored imagery, to make a bigger, this is very recent, within the last month or so.
I would talk a little bit about this because I've always sketched. Like I'm prolific as far as doodles go. I would come home from work after working 8 or 9 hours and I'd work drawing stuff until I went to bed. And one of the things that's been so frustrating with this MS is not being able to hold the pencil with any strength. So I can wear myself really easily out by trying to fill in an area with color. So it was curtailing that urge to want to doodle all the time that I've always had. And I didn't know how I was going to do it. I didn't think I could. I would just sit there and draw for maybe, an hour or so at the table. And then my hand would give out and I'd sit down. It would take me forever to get one sketch done. And so Daniel ended up getting an iPad for me and told me, it'll measure, how much pressure you put down. And now I do like 5 or 6 of these a week. I'm working like 60 hours a week on just doodling. And it's because of the iPad. If it hadn't been for him, I never would have even thought that it was possible. So to me, it's just amazing to have met him and to have this opportunity to trade him my stained glass stuff, which I wasn't using for this new technology, and to be able to learn how to doodle all the time, just right in the chair where I am. Anytime I think of something, it's so cool.
Yeah, Nikki, this is Daniel. I'm just gonna chime in because I'm sitting with her, but yeah, and immediately, Nikki thinks of others and she's like, there are other artists who could probably benefit from this. So we're talking to figure out, how can we get the word out of how to use these tools for artists that have, some disability or accessibility issues. And
well, we can do that through the American Glass Guild's education arm. Our education chair is Roberto is also on. So we can, Daniel, let's see if we can't really do that. That's a fabulous idea. And we'll support you, Nikki, and Daniel can,
he's the one that came up with that idea, and I thought it was a good one, but my friend Ann was saying, maybe you could make it customized to each person, whatever their disability is.
Yeah, this work would be particularly effective with screen printing on glass too.
I thought, or a coloring book or something.
Yeah.
So
I
Troy,
thought
we
it
need
looked
to
like
make
Dick
a
Clark.
Troy, we need to make a fuse piece. Somehow we can bring some of this in. This would be really, really cool. Daniel,
Yeah, for sure.
let's put our heads together and do an awesome auction panel.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow, that would be
Oh,
cool.
yeah.
There you go.
I like the way your signature becomes a design element in those
Yeah,
clients.
Gizmo's badass signature.
Yeah, it kept having that flip around, and I kept
Yeah.
thinking, how can I sign it without it flipping? So I thought, I just got to make it part of the design. That's all there is
Exactly.
to
I
it.
like that. It's nice.
Yeah. That kind of looks like Dick.
Oh gosh, these are some of your earlier doodles,
Doodles.
doodly doodles. I ended up getting on a yellow lined legal pad. Every page is a marker doodle that was in one of those lots that I got from Dick that you had left the whole page there. So I could
Wow.
in each one of them. I have to take them, and we've talked about that before, Nikki. I put this out there for a lot of the people just so they can see, you know, it's hard to put a scale to this, but these are large windows that you had done for churches while you were at Lynchburg. So,
These actually it's a job that I got on my own, and Lynchburg Stained Glass fabricated it for me.
Okay.
So it worked out really well because they were right here in town. And I got to do Old Testament scenes on this job. And that actually happened to be the job I was working on when I was diagnosed. I was trying to put some pieces back on a pattern, and all of a sudden I just could barely stand up. I was like, what in the hell is wrong with me? And I thought maybe I had a brain tumor or something. So I was trying to rush to beat the brain tumor. And ended up finding out this is what it was.
we lost you there for a minute, but I think we got you back. Any questions you're seeing, Don, on the chat?
Not yet.
Okay, so I'm going to move to my folder. I had put this up a little bit earlier. I'm not sure if I showed everybody my stuff, so if it's all repetitive, let me know, because I've been bouncing back and forth with some of these. Dick ended up doing these like monogrammed pieces for certain people, and I was fortunate enough that he took my initials and made this piece for me, which I absolutely love, and I think Nikki has one as well. It's just crazy. It's just so cool how he did this work. So a little bit about myself now. I mean, my glass career is, I had my own studio for nearly 30 years. In the last 7 years, I'm the director of art development for Willett Hauser. I work with some amazing artists. I believe I saw Mark Blakely. He runs our design department. He's to my right in this, or my left in this photograph. But these are just some of the commissions and some of what I am able to work with and with this team. It's loads of fun. It's keeping me on my toes. Just recently,
the bed.
Okay.
someone not muted, Kelly. So we did some conservation work through the studio with the Lavarge window. I waited nearly 60 until I was in my 60s to do some very significant conservation painting, and I'm proud of this. And it's an amazing thing for me to have the privilege to work on these windows. And I thought I would share that of some recent. A lot of people know that I took the mantle and decided I was going to teach. There's nowhere in the United States that has a formal training through any kind of college or university that would teach you how to glass paint. A lot of us that are here today learn how to glass paint through different workshops. So it's called an unconventional education. I've written about it, that over a 30-year period, I certainly feel like I've invested enough of tuition, but I've learned from many people and the generosity of many people And I believe that it's important that we continue to share, and I teach on that level. And another reason I think I volunteer for the American Glass Guild is because of their mission statement with education. So I take workshops for many years, a minimum of 2 a year, traveled and have met lots of people. And Peter, you're on here, and Dick Millard, I think I've probably taken 5 or 6 workshops now with Narcissus. So it's difficult to learn. If these people continue to teach, I continue to take, because you can't learn something in 1 week. You need to go back and push and ask questions. So if you're able to invest in yourselves in education that way, I can't encourage it enough. I know now because of the pandemic, we're online, and it's a way to learn and take money, but I'll be a staunch supporter of the benefits of doing, learning in person as well. So make sure you have a good balance of that. This is a picture of my studio. Much like Peter talks with a slideshow, I'll pull out a lot of pieces, and some of the ones to the left in here are images that I did at Dick's. I took a workshop with Andy Young with John Nussbaum. There's just workshop pieces that I've made at a lot of different. I think there's Peter. There's some of my pieces that I did at your workshop, or in the lower left corner of that. I'm very proud of that, and I think what it does is it shows an eclectic time vested in what you can learn and how it can speak to your work. Helen Whitaker came and took a workshop. She flew over and spent some time with me, and then she went on to Judah Schechter, Ken Leap, Joseph Cavallari, and she spent some time with Art Feminello. So I absolutely fell in love with her as a person and a friend, and we had a blast and continue to remain friends because of glass. Now, I got this from Vicki Millard. If you feed your students well, okay, every day, I feed them breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And I take stuff from my garden and I put it out, and we come together in that little room and eat, and they get to know one another by the end of the week. So through the years of all of these workshops, I try to put together something that seems the best of each one, and it's amazing. Daniel never behaves in any photograph I have of him. He's got to make a face. So I have, I was introduced to the Hulf kilns at Dick's, the tiny Hulf. I have 2 of them. There's one to the left of that in a kiln room. I also married a man that had a commercial glass shop, so I was able to have a glass kiln room, which is really kind of cool off the back of my studio. Everyone, just a lot, Pete, I think the way you do and I do, we all have a community project where everyone's kind of working on the same head so that we can bring it along and, have discussions about it, the successes and failures and what needs to happen. But a lot of people also have the freedom to make extra pieces if they want to. With 2 Hulf kilns, you can imagine I'm pushing work through pretty quickly. And what's nice about my studio, much like some took advantage of Dick, they can work all night long, and I stop teaching around 5 o'clock, 5 or 6, but I'll come out and hang out with everybody. They're just monsters out there. They don't stop. So it's kind of a cool environment that way. We sit out back, we burn brushes, they hang out and really forge good for, I think, yeah, this is I think one of my students is on this class here. So, bring your food outside, hang out, eat inside, whatever happens. It's this kind of environment. I have 2 of these large tables. We can fit a bunch of students around. This is before the storm. When they come in, everything looks clean and organized. I also have an internal glass room there that Clay has built for me as well. These are electric kilns. and pottery kilns. He's a potter and my daughter is, so it's a cool space there. This is the first floor of my studio. There's a second floor up top that has a library and a lot of my work. I'm so proud of this picture, Pete. This is so awesome. I cannot say enough to everyone about how important education and sharing and generosity and how we share one another in informal and formal settings through the American Glass Guild. You know, some of us make income that way. Some of us, you know, meet one another. And I truly appreciate this opportunity today to you know, put some focus on Dick Millard, you know, and what he's done and what Antrim School did for many of us, and continue to speak to how we teach and why we teach. And I love everyone for that, and all of the family and that I've met through this. It's just it's magic. It's a magical experience. And I know we have a lot of people here that aren't a part of the Antrim experience, and they've had opportunities, you know, where they are in classes and teachers. Please share, you know, with us, you know, where these classes and opportunities are. The American Glass Guild has a robust scholarship program. We offer it now twice a year, that we would support the classes that you would take. Go to the website and find out about it if you want to learn and take classes. This is a piece of mine that I did, Narcissus class. No time for any anal retentive painting in that class. You had to paint something very quickly and then just glom glass on top of it and not be able to see what was underneath. And I love that aspect of it. And this was a portrait I did when I was 15 years old. So I classically learned how to draw, and I thought I would share something that I did when I was very young. And this is a piece where I did this at Andy Young. We had to do Earth, Wind, and Fire. And I love the fact that I could do it, but I had no idea how I could ever realize this in glass. And many years later, I now feel like fusing, you know, is a way that I could do this with the powders. So pull out some of your old ideas and rethink them as you mature and learn and are introduced to new glass ideas and whatnot. I think it would be fun to do that piece. So I kind of put this like almost as a challenge to myself to see what this could become in glass. So of course I'm known for my brushes, so I thought I would just throw that in there. Why not? And I think this is the last image here, my anal retentive church painting.
Can we go through some of Troy's work? Do you have more of Troy's work than we saw?
I don't. I can put Troy's folder back up again.
I remember seeing a few of them, but some of the 3D stuff, did we go through that? I'm getting it confused with our earlier meeting where we talked about the images.
So Troy, this is before the pieces were framed, correct? You have them?
Yeah, so that's actually, yeah, that's very much, that's work that's in process right now.
Cool.
So it's, you know, the larger one on the left is 2 foot by 3. So it's all fused and painted. There's silk screening and brushwork and image transfers. So that's, I mean, that's very much like my personal work, the type of thing I'm exploring right now. And I definitely can say that although my work is very, very different than most of the Antrim alumni, and I don't tend to work in what is recognized as traditional stained glass much at all, the people that I met and the encouragement that I received and the education that I got at the Antrim School is very much to blame for me sticking with this.
Is there a,
you know,
is there a West Coast glass painting culture that is distinct from the Antrim School? I mean, I know of a few. Raph Raf up in Portland, and
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say by the time I met Dick Millard, I'm sorry, by the time I met Dick, I was fusing already. And the stained glass I was doing was very pedestrian, very, beginning level. And so then stumbling into this world of master glass paintings that are doing, monumental work and historically significant work was, mind blowing to me. So I was like, oh, wow. So you're painting on glass, you put that in a kiln and then it sticks to the glass. Cool. So I went back to the studio I was working at where I had already been doing fusing and I started thinking, oh, okay, so I can just paint on this glass and fuse it in and just keep playing with it in that different direction.
Those are neat.
Yeah, so those again, that's more still in process. Those are some of the panels you just saw, but I'm also welding up the structures for them.
Yeah, I love the frames.
I think that's like your signature, Troy, is your work, is how you house your glass pieces. They're a work of art themselves and they make them so unique. And all of the frames are just awesome.
No, thanks. Yeah, I mean, it's just, and you can see like it's still very much in process. The steel will get some coloring on it, and I'm doing, even some collage work onto the steel, and then I'll grind it back and rust it out. And I think the glass for this one is not going to go back into the kiln. I think the glass is finished, but I'll keep playing with the structure.
Great work, Troy.
Well, thanks. Thanks. Yeah, so this is, again, it's fused glass that has, Rouchet paints incorporated into the fused glass. And then that is then mounted over an acrylic mixed media on wood panel.
So how thick would these be?
I see. Okay.
So the glass is always just about 1/4 of an inch because that's what it wants to be here on planet Earth. So that's what the glass is usually. And then it's mounted on a 2-inch cradled artboard.
That looks like Atlantis.
Wow, that's an old one.
Yeah, I love this.
That was one of the first things. So the apple, although people keep calling it a peach, that was an apple. It can be whatever. It can be a banana, but whatever that piece of fruit is. That was one of my first times of like laying down this paint on a piece of clear, firing it, and then cutting up chunks of glass and dropping it on it. And that would have been back in like 2006 or something. When I made the apple, and then I carried the apple around for a while. And then I figured out, oh, I can get high heart lead. I didn't know that was a thing. So then I high heart my fused pieces together.
The red lines work with this one.
Yeah. This was at the cathedral. I remember we saw this when we went down there to the show.
Yeah, that was a huge honor too. So like I made this silly little apple and carried it around, and then I finally lettered it. And then through the American Glass Guild, when our conferences in the DC area, we had an exhibit at the National Cathedral, which if you don't already know, the National Cathedral is, stained glass mecca. Definitely, you've got to go check it out if you're in the Washington area.
Absolutely. Truck keeps beeping.
So
they can jump.
So this is still, obviously what you'd recognize as stained glass. This was for the Children's Chapel of the Church of Beatitudes in Phoenix. And it was super lovely commission experience. It was one where the donor family, their only instructions were, find the artist that you want to do it and then get out of his way. So like, I didn't have to do color samples at first they were asking not even to really see sketches, but that was far too intimidating and scary. So I did a series of watercolors. They approved this and went at it with, flashed glass and no paint, flashed glass and lead. Okay, so this is not what it appears. I made you can see there's some bits and pieces of that children's chapel window. So I took photographs of my past work, took it into Photoshop, created large scale digital compositions or collages, and then direct printed them onto large sheets, 4 by 8 foot sheets of acrylic. So then they could hang in an outdoor space and behave like stained glass. as a temporary installation.
Oh, that's awesome.
It was just, again, super cool commission. The city of Scottsdale has a wonderful program where they do temporary public art installations. So, they gave me a fun budget to work with and a lot of freedom. And this was my first exploration into digital art, if that's even what this is.
Cool.
Yeah, super fun.
Is that your piece there?
That's me. Yeah. So that was actually that was at a Deborah Coombs workshop.
Okay. See?
Deborah Coombs through Antrim, and then she invited me to go spend a week in Vermont with her, and for a class. And so that's all done with propylene glycol. That's based off of a old sketch from a drunken conversation in Ireland when I was 18.
Oh, nice.
Miles Davis and his drug habits. So there's a lot more to that story.
I didn't, you never know what you're stepping into when I put some random picture of what you guys make up here. It could be Vikings or, drug problems. I'll leave that alone. That was, I think that might be all of the photographs that I have, everyone, for Dick in this class. I think when I got the photos, I think I could have gone on and on and on. So I know that I wanted to make it where we didn't exclude anybody from a lot of stories that we had, but also include everyone. It's amazing. Don, I don't know if we have any other photos or if anybody has any kind of questions, because now would be the time to ask it while we're here.
Yeah, we are at
Kathy,
2 hours.
I just sent you the one that Dick did for me, the monogram, but I sent it to you on your phone.
Yeah, it may be hard, Nikki, for me to get this over to my laptop for you or something, so I'm gonna have a hard time with that.
Yeah, they were so cool though. All of them were so neat. I loved going in that room and looking at them.
Yeah, I think I probably could have had a workshop or a GlassZoom on just some of the things that I got at the auction with some of Dick's things. But I know one of the questions we asked was, when are we going to resume teaching with COVID was a question. And Pete and I talked about it. I think we're like-minded where we're okay right now to wait a little bit just to see how things happen. Out of COVID, GlassZoom was born for us. I know on a professional level in the liturgical industry, it's forced a lot of churches to come into the 21st century with technology. So it's really cool to be able to have some face-to-face meetings, with the church committee and see them get all jazzed up that they're all talking to one another. GlassZoom, when we have our meetings, just how we're communicating. And there are some really brave souls, that's the way I feel, that are coming forward and teaching online. Tim Carey, Narcissus is putting a whole volume of his life work online, and it's coming out. He is one of our guest speakers at Corning and will launch a lot of his lifetime's work in fusing. So it's wonderful to see it happen. I absolutely believe, I'll be teaching again, but when it happens, it will. I've got enough to keep me busy as the president of the American Glass Guild for the next year, into next summer. So I don't know that it's going to happen there. When students come back, we'll have a pottery studio that was been built for my husband, and everything will be clean. We'll just put it that way. I'll have a clean space. But if anybody has any other comments, I don't know what we are for time. I don't have a clock here in front of me.
We're a little over 2 hours, so it's about time to wrap it up.
I had a question for Troy. I was curious what your annealing time was on some of those heavier pieces, because I noticed that you had holes drilled in them. So that's a hat trick. How long are you annealing that? And is it, go ahead.
The annealing time and temperature and all that is going to vary depending more on the thickness, like variations in the thickness of the glass.
Right, I understand. So is it 2 days? Is it
Oh, no,
like,
no, I mean, a few hours as the actual anneal,
really?
sure, and back down in 12 hours,
Wow.
14
I'm
hours.
paranoid, man. I go much slower. Brave you.
Well, so I think that a big part of that, like Kathy said earlier about Dick's or all of us saying, oh, that's quite good, wipe it off, start over,
Right.
taught me that nothing's precious. So I'm not scared to drill holes in glass because if it breaks, that's okay. I'll make more glass.
Right. I don't know. I've lost 3 waves this last 2 weeks, and it's kind of frustrating.
If you can email me directly, I can try to answer some questions for you.
That'd be great. That'd be great.
We got a question from Mary Lou. When might there be another GlassZoom? We're trying to put the pressure on Roberto to do a conservation GlassZoom. So we'll be nagging him, but we don't have a date set yet. Our goal is to do them at least monthly, if not more. But they take a little bit yet to put together.
Too bad we can't get him to make some pasta too.
I wouldn't know anything about his pasta. I
Super
imagine
Todd.
it's pretty good.
Yeah, it's super
Oh,
side.
yeah.
Oh, you know what? Let me just put a shout out to Sean. Sean just was interviewed by Derek. If you see it online through Facebook, Derek Hunt interviews artists and everything. I just saw it, Sean. It was awesome. And, you know, if you see it on Facebook, make sure he does some amazing work. And I think Sean's like a second generation. He took some classes with Ken, a class with Ken and I, you know, so it's born out of Antrim and whatnot. But I have to sign off. So I don't know what's going to happen with it. If I sign off, we might cut everybody or probably.
We'll go back to that gallery view if you sign off and your
I'm
screen
going to
sharing.
stop sharing here and we go back to the gallery. There it is.
So we,
I want to thank everyone for putting
I
this
think
on.
one of the key messages about the whole Antrim experience was the sense of community. And, you know, we can't always be flying around the country and spending a week at other people's studios. So I want to leverage this format, this medium, this tool, and make it better and do it more often. I think I really enjoy doing this, even if it just means sitting and listening to somebody show slides. But we need feedback from the AGG members. We need ideas and requests or volunteers for content. So I'm all ears. Actually our education committee is taking over ownership of the GlassZoom product, but I'll always be paying attention to it. So please send me or Kathy any ideas you have or requests.
Thanks,
I had a question for Peter McGrain. As you've kind of transferred your skill sets from one thing to another, do you still teach painting where you're at, or have you just abandoned it?
No, my studio was up in Washington State there for 10 years with the Dream Studio, right? And I had to pull the plug on that 7 years ago. So all I've been doing for teaching the last several years is private one-on-one.
Good. Okay, good.
And I just lease, there's a big commercial retail studio down here named AAE Glass. I don't know if you ever heard of that, but we're down in Florida.
Okay.
She leases the space to me if I need to use her. I don't even have any, you know, I've got one little Hove kiln anymore.
Okay, yeah, everything's on the East Coast for me. So, because I'm
down in Florida. Again, you could contact me directly on my website.
Okay.
I usually post what's going on there. I've been on hold, of course, like everybody else, but I'm anticipating getting back into the private sessions because I'm not real excited about traveling for workshop teaching to larger groups much anymore.
Yeah, neither am I.
Sadly, because it's fun to do. But yeah, so thank you. Look into it. And
good. Thank you.
Cheers.
All right, everyone. Done. I'm going to say goodbye. And again, if you're a member of the American Glass Guild, we're glad to have you. If you need to renew your membership, take a moment. And if you're not a member, we would love you. And thanks for all of your ideas and your time. And we'll come together, I promise, in October. And I hope to see all of you back. And I'm glad
Thank
Peter,
you
I
so
miss
much.
you and I miss a lot of you talking with you and everything. And you might just see me in Florida with a private lesson. That would be awesome.
All right.
Awesome.
Good Indian food.
This meeting was recorded, so we'll be trying to find a way to make it available to you all. And I do have all of your, since all of you had to request the link from me, I have your email address, and so I can communicate where that is to you. But we'll be trying to do more of these. Thank you all. I really
Thanks for doing
appreciate
it, Don. Thanks,
everyone.
Kathy. I love to see
Bye, everyone.
everybody.
This afternoon.
Right.
Thank you, John.
Thanks,
Don. Thank you for having me. It's been really, really special. I've
Thank
enjoyed
you,
I'm
it.
so glad you came, John. I'm so glad. Tell your dad that we love him.
I
Do
certainly
for
will. I
everybody-
certainly will. Yeah, I'll see him tomorrow, so it'll be fresh.
Tell him we said lesbians.
Save the date for July, okay? And for next year, think of Corning.
Yeah.
Everybody,
Everyone stay well.
okay?
That's a good idea too.
Yeah, stay well.
All righty.
All right, guys.
See you later.
Bye, y'all.
Bye-bye.
Love you all.
Wow, that was cool.